A couple from our church just opened an Indian restaurant in our area, and it is so delicious. And one of my favorite things to get there is butter chicken. If you've never had butter chicken, oh my goodness, it is so delicious. We are going to attempt, I'm sure it won't be near as good as theirs, but let's see. We're gonna attempt to make this in the crock pot and just let it cook all day. We have one of those crazy busy days, so I would love to just get everything in there and not have to worry about it. This is just about a pound of chicken breast, and these are the thinly sliced one. That's all that my store had this time. So I got that. Now, normally when I make this, I like to do 2 pounds of chicken so that we have plenty left over for lunch the next day. Unfortunately, that's not gonna happen this time, so that's okay. We're gonna cut this into cubes and serve this over rice when we are ready to serve tonight. So today, my entire family has haircuts. Like, we're all going at the same time, which is crazy. My house needs to be cleaned. I need to finish packing for a trip. It's just all the things. Okay, I am gonna spray my crock pot, although I don't know that it matters after I put all the stuff in that we're gonna put in here. And then let's add in the chicken that we just cut, and we'll end up just mixing all of the ingredients directly in the crock pot. If you are adding onions to yours, this is where you wanna saute them before you actually put them in here. I'm adding a touch of coconut oil into this chicken here. Probably approximately a half tablespoon. I'm really not measuring that too much. Now, if you don't have coconut oil, just use an avocado oil or olive oil, that's completely fine. I'm adding in some ginger paste. You can use fresh ginger if you want, but this ginger paste is just so convenient. About a half tablespoon up to a tablespoon. We really like it, so we pretty much always add more. About 2 cloves of minced garlic. Do a decent amount there. I'm gonna use just under a tablespoon of curry powder. I don't really ever measure that one. I just do it by looks. And then same with the garam masala. This one right here, I use about a half tablespoon or so. But again, you might wanna double this recipe, which is typically what I do. We just don't have any more breasts that I can throw in there. I wonder, I should have checked to see if we had chicken thighs out there that I could have thrown in some chicken thighs too. Just under a teaspoon or so of chili powder. Add a pinch of salt. This is tomato paste, and you know how you hardly ever use a whole can of tomato paste? Well, I just freeze it into a couple tablespoon portions whenever we don't use a full can. So I need a half can, which is perfect. So I'm just putting that in there frozen, and then in a couple of hours, I'll come and just mix it in there. But if you don't have it frozen, you just need a half can, or if you're doubling this recipe, you want a whole can. For the tomato sauce, I'm only gonna be using a half can. I'll make a spaghetti or add it to a spaghetti. That's usually what I end up doing if we don't use a full can. We're gonna start this just by letting it cook like this. Then in a few hours, we're gonna come back and add in some coconut milk. You can use half and half if you don't have coconut milk. And then at the very end, we're gonna add in Greek yogurt. This is going to go in my crock pot for, I'm gonna cook this on low, about 4 hours, and then we're gonna add in some other ingredients. I'm gonna stir it, and then we are going to add in some coconut milk. And actually, I never did come back and stir that tomato paste. I completely forgot about it. All right, I don't wanna stir it too, I wanna be gentle with the stir, because that once chicken cooks in the crock pot, it will just fall apart so easily. But I would like it to mostly remain in pieces. Can of coconut milk. I'm gonna use half of the can in here, and then I'm actually gonna cook our rice in coconut milk over in my rice cooker. So we'll use the other half for that. And then stir that together. Now at this point, I really wanna bring the heat down on this. We want to be able to stir in some Greek yogurt, and if you stir in Greek yogurt when it's too hot, it'll just curdle, and it's not great in here. So we're gonna turn the heat to off. I'm gonna put the lid on though, just so I don't want it to get cold, but it'll stay nice and warm. We just don't want it to be hot. This has been sitting for about 20-30 minutes or so. I'm just gonna add around a 1/4 cup of plain non-fat Greek yogurt and stir that in. At this point, this smells delicious. It looks delicious. I'm just gonna taste a little tiny bite. Let's give this a try. Maybe it's not a tiny bite, it's a regular size bite. It is so good. Wow, I cannot wait. My husband is mowing the yard. He needs to just stop and come in now. Time to serve. We're ready to eat. I like to make sure we get a good amount of sauce. I also had my daughter toast up these little pitas. They're mini pitas that we had, so each person will get a couple of those. Obviously, you guys know I've got to add a little bit of green because there's just not enough color on this one. I've already tasted this and told you guys how good the chicken and the sauce is. Let's just get a bite with the rice. It's perfect. It's so good. I really wish I'd made a double batch. We are going to make a Mexican-inspired beef. Now I'm gonna make these into tacos, but you can choose whatever you want. You could put it over rice, you could put it over potatoes, you could serve it with some sort of side salad or something like that. But I've got my larger crock pot here. We're gonna be making this with an Angus beef London broil. This is not what I would have picked in the grocery store. I actually asked for a chuck roast, but the Instacart shopper, that's what they brought me. So we're gonna roll with it. I realize it's not the same thing and it might turn out a little bit different, but we're gonna go ahead and make it that way anyway, because I definitely do not want a $20 piece of meat to go to waste. Oh, actually it was on sale, so it's $15, but either way. So we're starting with a really large onion, and you guys, you might be surprised because a lot of you know I don't usually cook with onion, but this is gonna go at the bottom of the crock pot, and it's really just gonna help with the flavors of the beef. So let's start by just cutting this up. I'm gonna cut it into large pieces. All right, so it is currently 10 a.m. I'm putting all this in pretty early. I actually wanted to have it in even earlier than this, but I got a little sidetracked. So let's take the crock pot here. I've got some tomato paste in here. I opened a can for a different recipe, and normally I would just freeze it, but I knew that I was gonna be using it within the next couple of days. We're gonna add about 2 tablespoons to it might be a little more than 2, but that's okay, to the onion mixture. And just start to mix that together. Doesn't have to be perfect or anything. We're just adding this to the onions. I'm also going to add about a 1/4 teaspoon of salt to the onions and mix that as well. Okay, so we're just making sure this is well combined. Now, if you plan on eating your onions, you might want to slice them a little thinner. Mine is primarily going to be for cooking. I mean, like I said, I will eat some of them. I have no problem with it. My daughter actually likes onions as well, so as long as they're cooked. All right, we'll set that to the side for just a minute. And let's make our spice mixture. I'm just going to put it in this bowl. We need 1 teaspoon of cumin, 1 teaspoon of garlic powder, 1 teaspoon of chili pepper. I went a little less on this. My chili pepper is actually a chipotle chili pepper, which is intended for Mexican dishes. And it's a little spicier than regular chili pepper. So I just went a little less than a teaspoon, not a lot less. About a teaspoon of paprika. And then we're gonna add in some salt, about a teaspoon of salt as well. Let's combine those. All right, let's open up our beef, and we are going to completely cover the beef in this spice mixture, making sure that we get good flavor all over it. I'm gonna take the mixture and sprinkle all over the top, pat it in, really kind of pressing it into the meat, flip the meat over and do the same thing on the other side. So we wanna make sure we get all of it on here. We're not gonna leave anything on the cutting board. Don't forget about the edges. Okay, now I'm going to just make sure that I pat it all along this cutting board to get any of the spice mixture that fell off. We are going to take that meat and it's gonna go right on top of the onions here, just like so. Let me actually put this in the sink and wash out my hands. This is going to cook on low for 9 to 10 hours or on high for 6 to 7 hours. So it does take a good amount of time. Do not open it. Leave it closed the entire time. Then after your time is up, You wanna take the lid off, we'll test it, we'll make sure the meat is just really falling apart, and if it's not, we're gonna let it cook for another 30 to 60 minutes. Because of the time that it is, so it's 10 o'clock, I might actually need to go on high. This is truly why I intended to start it a little earlier, because then I could cook it on low. But let's just start on high, we'll see how it goes, and then I'll be back in just a bit. Let's put this into the crock pot. I haven't opened the beef yet, but we are going to make up a coleslaw to go on the top. Kind of a coleslaw, I guess you could say. I don't know, I like to have something a little crunchy to go on the top of my tacos. So I'm taking this bag of tri-colored coleslaw. You really don't even have to, that's a huge bag. You really don't have to use the whole thing. Now on a taco like this, I do prefer that my coleslaw be more acidic almost. So I'm gonna add a little bit of lime juice here. And this is probably a tablespoon. I'm also gonna add about a tablespoon of just vinegar, okay? Just straight vinegar, maybe a little more than a tablespoon. And then I'll taste it at the end to see if we need anything else. I also like to add a little bit of red wine vinegar, about a tablespoon. About a tablespoon, maybe 2 tablespoons of mayo. I think I did order another one. So it's kind of a coleslaw, but it's not heavy at all. That's what I'm looking for. It's really just gonna add a touch of just a little bit of a crunch to the top of that taco. Now, obviously, if you're not gonna use this as tacos, you don't have to make this at all. I'm gonna put a little bit of salt in there. I like the consistency, the liquid amount. Last night I made homemade sourdough chocolate chip scones. It made 8 of, you guys know I have to throw food. It made 8 of them last night, okay? Less than 24 hours ago. There are 2 left. Our coleslaw is ready. I think we have avocado. I need to see if it is still good though. So I'm gonna check the avocado. If we do, I'm probably gonna make up a very quick guacamole just to have. It's not a necessity, but it might be nice to have. All right, let's just taste and see. It needs a little more mayo. Perfection. I totally forgot that I was gonna add some green onion into this. Awesome. Okay, so this is ready now to go at dinner. I also just found the guacamole, or the avocado. I'm gonna open it up and see how it is. All right, guys, this is the moment of truth. I ended up leaving it on high. So it's been in here on high, lid completely closed for about 7 hours. We're gonna test it. Okay, so I think I'm gonna take it out if I can. Oh man, it's falling apart. That is what you want. Okay, so I am gonna take it out because I'm gonna take out a lot of the onions. I'm gonna leave some in there because they're big. Everybody can pick through them, but I'm gonna reserve the onions because I like them, my daughter likes them, so we can just add them in to ours if we want. Okay, I'm gonna put this back in here and just shred it in there because it's falling apart, so that's gonna be really easy to do. As a matter of fact, I don't even need a fork. Just use these tongs, just like so. All right, let's taste this beef. It is definitely done, and it smells delicious. It shredded so easily. That's got excellent flavor. I do think that the chuck roast would have been a little more fatty, so you would get, it's not, I don't wanna say it's dry, but you would have just the more fattiness to it, you know? But the flavors are excellent. Let me try it with an onion. Very good. I'm just gonna have the lid on until we're ready to serve this stuff up. Everything's ready to go when we're ready to have dinner. I firmly believe that one of the most economical recipes that you can make for your household is a whole chicken. We buy our whole chicken in a 2-pack from Sam's Club, and this 2-pack was $7.84. We're gonna make it in the crock pot. You can make these in the oven, rotisserie, on the grill, in the crock pot, in the Instant Pot. There's so many different ways. When I say this is economical, what we typically do is the first night we'll just take some of the meat off of the bones and serve it alongside whatever side we're having. Then the second night, I'll use the rest of the chicken, shred it up, and make some sort of casserole or something like that. So we usually get 2 meals out of this chicken that was just under $4. And on top of that, I'll boil the bones and make our own bone broth. For tonight's recipe, we are going to add carrots and potatoes into the bottom of the crock pot. And one thing about making a whole chicken in the crock pot is you don't want it to touch the bottom. So you want it to sit up a little bit. The juices are still gonna come out and there's still gonna be great flavor in there, but then it's not just sitting in the liquids. Underneath our chicken, we're gonna add potatoes and carrots. So I'm just going to cut up some carrots and I'm cutting them into pretty large pieces just because I'm keeping it simple on myself. So we're peeling those and cutting them up. And then I am going to cut these potatoes into decently large chunks. I am not dicing them small by any means because these are all gonna go at the bottom of the crock pot. Maybe you're not a fan of the whole carrot and potato thing and you just wanna make a whole chicken and then use the meat for something else. If you have a rack that fits inside of your crock pot, that's fantastic. You can put the chicken on the rack. I do not. All you have to do is take some aluminum foil and ball it up. So make a ball out of it and then set your chicken on top of that in the crock pot. You don't need to add any liquid at all because the chicken will make its own liquid. I'm gonna take all of my carrots and potatoes and put them at the bottom of the crock pot. And for this recipe, I'm using my larger crock pot. Technically, this chicken does fit inside the smaller one, but with the carrots and potatoes, I just wanna make sure that there is enough room. I'm gonna take some avocado oil, take whatever kind of oil you prefer, and I'm just adding maybe a teaspoon. It really doesn't need very much. Here's where we get a little crazy. Add in whatever spices you like. I mean, I go a little crazy with the spices and we'll do it again when we put the chicken in. So obviously you have to have some salt because otherwise you're not gonna get good flavor. I'm also adding in a bit of pepper. We love oregano in here. Some garlic powder, some onion powder. I actually like to add some chili powder in here. I feel like it adds really good flavor. You can also add garlic, minced garlic, paprika, which I need to be careful on this one because I need that for the chicken and we're almost out. Love rosemary and thyme, so good in this recipe. And I'm really generous with our spices, especially when it comes to things like herbs that don't have extra sodium in there. Okay, toss all of that together so that we have it all over. You can see you've got awesome color on these vegetables already just from that paprika and the garlic, the chili powder. That's what you wanna see. You wanna see this all over. It smells delicious already and we haven't even started cooking. Now we take the chicken and we're gonna season that really well in here as well. Now I personally like to have mine cook breast down. I think that's the way I normally do it. It's been a while. Since I cook this breast side down, we're gonna season the breast side first, then flip it over. So I'm gonna add all of the same spices that we already added and then we'll turn it over and add it to the other side too. Now, obviously you don't have to go quite as crazy with your spices if that's not something that you prefer. We like a lot. We like a lot of flavor and spices. So we will add quite a bit when we make something like this. Okay, now we're gonna flip, wash our hands and do the other side. Let me make sure this is stuck on there. It's pretty good. Let's put our insert into the crock pot. And there's a couple different ways you can go about this. You can go high, cook on high for 4 to 5 hours, or low, 7 to 8. Just because of the time that it is right now, we're going to do high for 4 to 5 hours, and we'll come back and dinner is basically ready, which is perfect for tonight because we made a last minute decision to do something fun with a friend this afternoon for my daughter's birthday coming up. So I won't even have to worry about dinner. We'll just come home to a nice home cooked meal. Okay, one thing you can do if you really want to crisp up the outside of the skin is pop the entire chicken under the broiler for just a couple of minutes and you'll crisp up the outer edges. But as you guys can see here in the crock pot, it makes its own juices. You do not have to add any liquid at all to the crock pot. You're gonna get plenty of that. Let's give this a try. I'll taste a little carrot. Perfectly cooked. Potatoes are great, really well seasoned. Same with the chicken, really well seasoned. And like I said before, I love how this makes dinner one night. It's so easy. It's all there in the crock pot and you're just serving it onto plates. And then once I pull this out of the crock pot, I'll shred off all of the meat and use it for a different recipe later on, which is fantastic. Our verse today comes from James 1:19. Know this, my beloved brothers, let every person be quick to hear, slow to speak, and slow to anger. I hope that you enjoyed this crockpot video. I've got several more planned for the month of October, so make sure you subscribe if you aren't already. If you wanna get a lot more food inspiration, kitchen inspiration, and specifically crockpot inspiration this month. I hope you're having a great week.